I hid my identity as the sole heir to the world's richest man and dated a billionaire CEO for 6 years. Just as I was about to tell her the truth, I overheard her friends speaking to her in German, right in front of me. "You're going home for that arranged marriage soon, so what about this boyfriend of yours? Are you dumping him?" Chloe gently swirled the wine in her glass. "I'm not breaking up with him. I really like him, but his family is too poor. He's not presentable. The marriage is just to satisfy my family. He's my true love. I'll just keep him on the side and hide it from him." They spoke so openly because they assumed a poor kid like me wouldn't understand German. I never told them that I did. So, all the while she was whispering promises of forever to me, she had already accepted an arranged marriage. I excused myself to the restroom and immediately called home. "Mom, Dad, I've thought it over. I'm ready to come back and take over the family business." Hearing me finally give in, my parents were ecstatic. But then, remembering the girlfriend I'd been dating incognito, they hesitated. "Is your girlfriend coming with you? You haven't told her who you really are, have you?" "No, I'm going to break up with her." My voice dropped when I said Chloe's name. "I'll have everything settled here within a week." After a few more words, I hung up, pocketed my phone, and went back to the private room. The loud conversations stopped for a beat as I walked in. I acted like I didn't notice, walking directly to Chloe's side and taking a seat. She broke away from her conversation to look at me sitting there quietly. "Ethan, what took you so long on the phone?" Before I could answer, someone else jumped in. Even though no one there was German, the woman spoke in German. "Chloe, when are you and Julian Croft planning to get married?" At her words, my grip on my glass tightened, my knuckles turning white. Chloe, however, remained perfectly casual. She glanced at me before replying in German. "The family set the date, 2 weeks from now." At that, every single person at the table turned to stare at me. One of her friends, Jessica, raised an eyebrow, her voice laced with curiosity. "If you're marrying Julian, then what happens to Ethan? Are you dumping him?" "No." Chloe shook her head, taking a delicate sip of wine before continuing. "The wedding is just for my family. Ethan is the only one I love." Her statement sent the room into a fit of laughter. "Chloe, since when are you such a romantic? With a class difference that huge, you actually fell for him?" She turned her head to look at me, her eyes filled with a tenderness so deep it was almost tangible. Without saying a word, she answered their question perfectly. Someone watched her lovesick display, clucking their tongue. "Wow, I guess she really is in love. But seriously, are you sure he doesn't understand German?" The question was casual, but it made the others laugh out loud. "Ethan's family is broke. Where would he get the money to study a language like that? Relax, there's no way he understands." Their mocking laughter filled the air. No one noticed my breathing quicken or the way my knuckles had turned white from gripping my glass. I didn't tell them I understood every word. I wasn't some poor kid from the wrong side of the tracks. I was the sole heir to the Vance fortune, the wealthiest family in the world. For 6 years, Chloe had loved me deeply, yet she'd never introduced me to her parents. I always assumed she was just worried about the difference in our backgrounds. After all, the Davenports were one of the most powerful families in Boston. That's why I had a plan. I was going to tell her I was the Vance heir, explaining that I'd hidden my identity only because I wanted to make it on my own, without living in my parents' shadow. But the timing couldn't have been worse. 3 days ago, in her study, I found a crimson wedding invitation. The groom was Julian Croft, and the bride was Chloe. It turned out that while she was whispering sweet nothings in my ear, she had already agreed to marry someone else. She was calling me her love, her future husband, while simultaneously planning her wedding to a man her family approved of, a man of her own class. In that instant, I realized there was nothing left to say. From now on, she could have her marriage and I would have my inheritance. We both had bright futures ahead of us. After a few more drinks, the party started to wind down as it got late. I was following the group out of the room when I heard an unfamiliar voice behind me. "Mr. Vance, is that you?" I froze. Turning, I saw it was one of my father's business associates, a man who was always trying to get a meeting. I sighed internally, trying to figure out how to play this off without revealing who I was. Jessica, trailing behind Chloe, looked me up and down and scoffed. "Mr. Vance? Him? Do the clothes on his back even cost $200 combined? Him, a rich kid? That's the funniest thing I've ever heard." Her comment triggered a wave of laughter. This time, they weren't speaking German, so I heard every word of their mockery, but I kept my face blank. It was Chloe who got angry, shooting Jessica a cold, warning glare. Jessica backed off, looking annoyed, and the others quieted down under Chloe's gaze. The associate didn't press the matter, and I followed Chloe out. We drove home in complete silence. When we got home, she finally spoke. Ethan, I'm not going to bring you to gatherings like that anymore. My voice and expression were calm, even though I was essentially being banished from her social life. I just asked, was I an embarrassment to you? She let out a short, frustrated laugh and reached for my hand, but I pulled away. She sighed, explaining helplessly, what are you talking about? I just don't want you to get hurt. But there's a gap between us, Chloe. We're always going to face situations like this. Has your family never pressured you about marriage? I watched her, searching her face for any sign of guilt. Even at the mention of marriage, her expression only flickered for a second before she regained her composure. Ethan, all you need to know is that I love you. That's enough. I'll figure out a way to solve all the other problems. If I hadn't been watching her so closely, I would have missed it. After she spoke, Chloe went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. As I watched her walk away, I thought, asterisk, is that your solution? Marry one man for your family and keep another for yourself. Asterisk. A moment later, a notification pinged from the nightstand. It was Chloe's phone. She'd never hidden her passcode from me, so I unlocked it easily and opened her iMessage. It was a text from Julian Croft. Chloe, we're meeting the parents tomorrow. If you don't stay over tonight, they might suspect this isn't a real marriage. I know you love your boyfriend, but please, just for the next few days, can you help me keep up appearances? His tone was pleading, but I saw his strategy clearly. First, he'd use the parents as an excuse to get her to stay over. What would be next? He'd just keep using that excuse, pushing for more and more. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I was already planning to leave. With that thought, I marked the message as unread and placed the phone back where I found it. A few minutes later, Chloe came out of the bathroom, glanced at her phone, and then looked at me with an apologetic expression. Ethan, something urgent just came up at the office. I have to go in. I won't be back tonight, so you get some rest. She left in such a rush that she didn't notice my reaction, or the fact that I didn't try to stop her. Normally, I would have walked her to the door, complaining that I wished she had more time for me, but this time I said nothing. I just watched her go. A moment after she left, my phone buzzed. It was a message. All it took was one text, and Chloe came running. We're meeting the parents tomorrow. Once we're married, what does that make you? Her dirty little secret. Julian's words were cruel, but what hurt more was the realization that the woman I thought I'd spend my life with had handed him the knife to stab me with. Chloe probably had no idea that even without the invitation, I would have found out about her wedding soon enough. The day after I found the invitation, Julian had sent me a friend request on Instagram. For days, he'd been sending me taunting photos. The two of them trying on wedding clothes, picking out diamond rings, scouting wedding venues. Each picture chipped away at what little love I had left for Chloe, until there was nothing. Chloe didn't come home that night, and I didn't care. The next morning, I went straight to my office and resigned, finishing all the paperwork by the end of the day. During my lunch break, I ate with some coworkers. When I told them I'd quit, one of my closer friends, Jake, laughed. I keep seeing these TikToks about people who suddenly quit their jobs because they're secretly heirs to a massive fortune. Ethan, you quit so abruptly. You're not secretly going off to run the family empire, are you? He was joking, but I just nodded. Yeah, that's the plan. For a second, they all stared at me, then the table erupted in laughter. They thought it was a joke, and I didn't bother correcting them. After lunch, I packed my desk and carried the box home. Chloe was home when I got back. Seeing me with the box, she looked confused. You quit. I nodded and started walking toward the bedroom. Her brow furrowed. But you loved that job. Why would you suddenly quit? I stopped and turned to her with a smile. Because I have something much more important to do now. Chloe didn't press further. Well, if it gets to be too much, just know you don't have to work. It hurts me to see you exhaust yourself every day. Ethan, you know I can take care of you. I shook my head, saying each word clearly. I'm not an accessory. How could you say you're an accessory? She started, but I cut her off. Why are you home so early? No work today. I've been so busy lately, I feel like I haven't had any time for you. I wanted to make it up to you today. Her expression softened, and she was my doting girlfriend again. What do you want to do? Dinner? A movie? Anything you want. I'm yours today. The old me would have been touched. I knew she was the heiress to the Davenport Corporation and was always buried in work. The fact that she would clear her schedule for me would have proven how much I meant to her. But now, all I could think was, are you busy with work or busy with wedding planning? How could she stand there, planning a wedding with another man, and tell me I was the only one she loved? In the end, I didn't call her out on her lies. It was only for a few more days. Soon, I'd be gone from her life completely. I shook my head, turning down her offer. Actually, I said after a moment, could you help me clean out the house? There's a lot of old stuff here we don't need anymore. Chloe agreed, and we spent hours cleaning. But as we worked, she realized that everything I was getting rid of was something we had bought together as a couple. Matching mugs, clothes, slippers, jewelry, everything went straight into the trash bags without a second thought. The smile on her face slowly faded as the pile of discarded memories grew. When the last matching item landed in the trash, she couldn't hide her panic any longer. "Ethan, do you know something?" "What would I know? Are you hiding something from me?" I raised an eyebrow, turning the question back on her. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. After a long silence, she still didn't answer, just squeezed my hand. "Ethan, no matter what happens, just remember that I love you." I gave a tight-lipped smile and said nothing. After we finished cleaning, Chloe insisted on taking me out. I agreed, not wanting her to suspect anything. We had dinner, saw a movie, and then the car pulled up in front of an auction house. As we were about to go inside, a man in a perfectly tailored suit walked toward us. I saw a flicker of unease on Chloe's face. "What is it? Someone you know?" Just then, the man stopped in front of us, smiling. Chloe made the introductions. "This is Julian Croft, a son of a family friend." She paused before gesturing to me. "And this is my boyfriend, Ethan." Hearing the stark difference in her introductions, the smile on Julian's face faltered. He recovered quickly, forcing a grin and extending his hand to me. "I've heard so much about Chloe's handsome boyfriend. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Just then, the same group of friends who'd been mocking me in German the night before walked up. Out of my line of sight, one of them winked at Chloe. That's when I knew this wasn't a chance meeting. They had brought him here on purpose. Rage boiled inside me, but I knew losing my temper would only make things worse. I forced it down. Inside the auction, Julian's seat was right next to Chloe's. In person, he was nothing like the arrogant jerk from his texts. He was charming and knowledgeable. When he learned Chloe was interested in porcelain, he engaged her in a lively conversation on the topic. I watched as Chloe, who had been distant at first, slowly started leaning in closer to him. It wasn't until I cleared my throat that Chloe seemed to remember I was there. She turned to me, her voice soft. "Are you bored, Ethan? I know this isn't your scene. If you see anything you like, feel free to bid." Before I could respond, I heard her friends whispering again. They kept their voices low, but they were only a row behind us, and I heard every word. "Chloe is so good at making excuses for him. Even if he was interested, what would he know? He probably doesn't even know how to raise a bidding paddle." "Exactly. This is his first time at a high society auction, I'm sure." They snickered, shooting a disdainful look in my direction. They were whispering, but I had a feeling they wanted me to hear. I ignored them. The next time we met, they'd be standing before me, respectfully calling me Mr. Vance. Just then, the bidding for one item ended, and the next was brought on stage. It was an exquisite jade carving of a pine and crane. The auctioneer announced that it was a piece by the legendary master carver, Rues. At the mention of the name, Julian grew excited. He raised his paddle. "Chloe, that's incredibly valuable. My grandmother's birthday is in 2 days. It would be the perfect gift for her." When I heard the name Junis, I glanced at the piece on stage. It only took a second. I looked away, and my voice was flat as I spoke, but my words were like a bucket of ice water dumped on Julian's head. "It's a fake." Julian stared at me in disbelief, on the verge of asking what a peasant like me would know. But with Chloe sitting right there, he forced a smile and asked, "And how can you tell, Mr. Vance?" "Because the real one was gifted to the Vance family matriarch by her grandson. It's one of a kind, and the real one is in my family's home. Therefore, the one on that stage has to be a fake." I was trying to be helpful, but my words just made Julian laugh out loud. Behind us, Chloe's friends started laughing too. "Don't pretend to be an expert when you're clueless. It's so embarrassing." "Yeah, gifted by the Vance heir? What, were you hiding under the bed and saw it happen yourself? You don't actually think sharing a last name with the Vance family makes you one of them, do you?" Their laughter grew louder, until finally, Chloe shot them a cold look that silenced them. She turned to me, taking my hand. "Ethan, I know you've been reading up on art appraisal, but you can't learn everything from books. Julian has been attending auctions his whole life and has studied these carvings for years. He naturally knows more about this than you do." She wasn't being cruel, but it was clear she thought I was talking nonsense. I just chuckled and let it go. In the end, Julian bought the sculpture for $100 million. I smiled as I watched him go to pay. I wondered what his grandmother would think when she found out he'd spent $100 million on a fake for her birthday. I didn't try to stop him. I just got up and headed for the men's room. I had just finished washing my hands when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Ethan Vance." I thought I made myself clear. "How can you be so shameless? Do you really want to be the other man that badly?" His voice was sharp and grating, a stark contrast to the sophisticated air he'd been playing moments before. I met his gaze coolly. "Mr. Croft, let's be clear. I'm the one who's been with her for 6 years. If anyone's the third party here, it isn't me." I started to walk past him, but he blocked my way, sneering. "6 years, and she still won't marry you. Ever wonder why? I'm the Croft heir, she's the Davenport heiress. We're a perfect match. And you? A gambling father, a sick mother, a broken home with nothing to your name. What part of you is worthy of her?" I stopped in my tracks. I had invented that backstory myself. I never imagined Chloe would share it with Julian. I let out a bitter, self-mocking laugh. If that really was my life, would I ever be more than just the boyfriend she claimed to love? She had handed another man a second knife to wound me with. He was right. I wasn't worthy. The anger in my chest suddenly vanished, replaced by a sharp pain. I looked back at Julian. "You two are perfect for each other. I wish you all the best." With that, I walked away. I hadn't gotten far before my phone rang. It was my mom. "Ethan, honey, you have to come home soon. The whole family is waiting for you, and they've prepared so many welcome home gifts. Your father and I bought you a castle in Europe, your aunt got you a diamond watch that supposedly belonged to a king, and your uncle has a garage full of luxury cars waiting for you." I listened with a helpless smile as my mom listed off the extravagant gifts. "Mom, I'm coming home to run the company, not to bankrupt it," I joked. Just as I said it, a familiar voice spoke from behind me. "Inherit what fortune?" I froze and instinctively hung up. I swear, why does everyone in her circle love sneaking up on people? I turned to see Chloe standing there, her expression grim. After a moment, I offered an explanation. "It's nothing. My old coworkers were asking what I was doing next, so I joked that I was going home to inherit a fortune." Chloe frowned. I wasn't the type to make jokes like that. She sensed something was off and was about to say more, but I had already started walking back to our seats. I called over my shoulder, "Are you coming? The jewelry lots are up next." Thinking I wanted to buy her something, Chloe nodded and followed. Back in our seats, she proceeded to win the next several jewelry lots, paying exorbitant prices for each. She had them all boxed and handed them to me. I looked down at the boxes. "I don't need these." Chloe just smiled and squeezed my hand. "You'll have to get used to it. Don't worry about the money. I'll buy you anything you want, forever." I opened my mouth to speak but stopped myself. I didn't wear multi-million-dollar jewelry. My own collection was worth hundreds of millions. The auction ended and people began to file out. Our group didn't linger. We had all driven separately, so we just needed to head home. But just as Chloe and I got in her car, before she could even start it, there was a knock on the passenger window. It was Julian. The window rolled down, revealing a Julian who looked nothing like the venomous man from the restroom. "Chloe," he said, looking helpless, "my car won't start. Could you possibly give me a ride home?" Chloe frowned, about to refuse, but he spoke again. "Your parents did ask you to look after me, remember?" I don't know what she was thinking, but her expression soured, and she agreed. Seeing her agree, his smile widened. Then he pushed his luck, looking at me. "The thing is, I get terrible motion sickness. I can't sit in the back." Chloe looked at me, but before she could say a word, I had already opened my door, gotten out, and moved to the back. It happened so fast that, by the time she processed it, I was already settled in the back seat. Whatever she was about to say died in her throat. She looked like she wanted to tell me it was just a seat and not a big deal, but when she glanced in the rearview mirror, I had already closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. Just then, Julian got in and shut the door. He saw me in the back with my eyes closed and a smug smile crossed his face. "So what if she still loves you, Ethan?" I could almost hear him think. I always get what I want. Her heart is just a matter of time. The thought seemed to cheer him up immensely. He looked at Chloe, his eyes full of affection. "Is Mr. Vance tired? We should let him rest." Maybe she sensed my mood, because Chloe didn't say much to Julian either. She just nodded and started the car in silence. At some point, I must have actually fallen asleep, because when I woke up, we were in the garage of her family's mansion, and Julian was gone. Chloe gently touched my cheek. "You're awake. You were sleeping so soundly, I didn't want to wake you." Still groggy, I nodded, got out of the car, and walked toward the house without waiting for her. By the time Chloe got out of the car, I was already at the front door. She hurried to catch up, blocking my way. "Are you angry? Julian is just a family friend's son. Don't let it bother you." I just grunted in response. Thinking I was still mad, she grabbed my arm. "He really is just a family friend. Honey, you know you're the only one I love." She leaned in to kiss me, but I pushed her away. Seeing the shock on her face, I walked inside. "I don't feel well. I'm going to my room to lie down." Then I went into the bedroom and locked the door behind me, shutting her out completely. The next morning, as Chloe and I were eating breakfast, my phone buzzed. It was a calendar reminder I'd set weeks ago. The note read, "Meet the parents." Chloe saw the notification too. I had set it back when I was planning to tell her everything and have her meet my real parents in New York. We looked at each other, and I was trying to think of an excuse to cancel when her phone started ringing. It was Julian. I couldn't hear what he said, but her expression shifted. When she turned back to me, she looked apologetic. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. Something urgent just came up. Can we reschedule meeting your parents for another time?" She probably expected me to be upset, but I just nodded calmly. "That's fine. I have things to do today anyway." Soon after she left, I went out myself, heading to the mall to buy some going-away gifts for my friends. When I met up with them later, they opened their gifts and gasped. Each box held a brand new luxury item. "Ethan, where did you get such good knockoffs? These look totally real." "They're real," I said, laughing at their stunned faces. When they still looked skeptical, I finally told them the truth about who I was. The story about my gambling dad and sick mom, that was all a lie. The truth is, I'm the sole heir to the Vance fortune, and I'm saying goodbye because I have to go home to New York to take over the family business. There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by shock, and then pure pandemonium. They started shouting things like, "The heir was right here all along." Their screams were loud enough to shake the restaurant. After the excitement died down, Jake remembered Chloe. "But what about Chloe? Does she know who you are?" At the mention of her name, my smile faded. "She's marrying someone else." "No way!" my friends exclaimed in disbelief. "She's always seemed so crazy in love with you." "Seriously? Remember 3 years ago when you mentioned you liked night blooming Sirius? She spent a fortune buying every single one she could find, just to see you smile. And 2 years ago when you had that bad flu, she canceled a $100 million deal and flew back from Europe just to take care of you, staying by your side all night. A year ago, that car accident, the truck was heading for your side, and she swerved to take the hit herself. You walked away without a scratch, but she had 3 broken ribs and was in the hospital for 3 months. She almost didn't make it, and now she's marrying someone else? How is that possible?" Hearing them recount those memories still stirred something in me. The Chloe from back then truly loved me. She loved me enough to die for me. But now, I shook my head with a small, bitter smile. She loves me, but her family thinks I'm not good enough for her. Before I even had a chance to tell her the truth, the wedding invitations were already printed. From the sounds of it, her plan was to keep me as her lover on the side. My friends exploded.
Her lover?
She wants the Vance heir to be her secret lover? The Davenports have lost their minds. Oh, she is going to regret this so much. Exactly. When she finds out you're gone and her family learns who you really are, they're going to freak out. Just then, Chloe and Julian walked into the restaurant. Hearing the last part of our conversation, Chloe frowned. What real identity? Seeing them together, Jake looked furious and was about to say something, but I held him back. I looked at the newcomers, my expression cold. What are you doing here? My question made Chloe nervous. She couldn't meet my eyes. Our families are working on a deal. We were just meeting to discuss it. I laughed at her answer. Of course I knew about their deal. A marriage deal. They took a separate table nearby, close enough for me to see everything. I watched her cut his steak, share food from her plate, hand him a napkin, and even wipe a smudge from the corner of his mouth. The intimate display made my friends fume, but I kept my expression neutral. After dinner, as my friends and I were about to leave, Chloe offered to drive both me and Julian home. Perhaps remembering the argument over the front seat, this time she had brought her family's chauffeured Rolls-Royce. No fighting over seats this time. The ride was smooth as we headed toward Julian's neighborhood. No one saw it coming. A large truck, out of control, came barreling toward us from an intersection. The chauffeur swerved hard, but the impact was unavoidable. There was a deafening crash. As the windows shattered and I was thrown sideways, the last thing I saw was Chloe instinctively shielding Julian, protecting him from the impact and trying to calm him down. As my vision blurred, I suddenly remembered the other accident my friends had talked about. It was our 4th year together, when I was more in love with her than ever. The same kind of intersection, the same kind of speeding truck. Back then, the truck had been heading straight for my side of the car. In that split second of terror, she had wrenched the wheel, turning the car so her side took the full impact. The front was crushed, and she was pinned in the driver's seat. It took the paramedics forever to get her out. She almost died that day, and yet, the first thing she asked when she woke up in the hospital was whether I was okay. Now, here we were again in the same situation, but this time, the person she protected wasn't me. The back of the Rolls-Royce was completely mangled. After we all managed to get out, Chloe, who had been fussing over Julian, finally noticed me, silently pressing a hand to my bleeding forehead. Luckily, my injuries weren't severe. At the hospital, they bandaged my head and said I was fine, though they recommended I stay for a couple of days for observation. Chloe looked at the bandage on my head, her face etched with guilt. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I was just thinking that Julian and I have that business deal, and we have public appearances to make. His face couldn't get injured, so I just reacted. Yell at me, hit me, I don't care, just please don't ignore me. She sounded sincere, and her reason was almost believable. It would have been, if I hadn't remembered their wedding was less than 2 weeks away. I'm guessing that's the business deal she was talking about. I kept my eyes lowered and said nothing. I didn't forgive her, but I didn't say I wouldn't. My expression remained blank. She kept apologizing over and over, until suddenly an idea seemed to strike her, and a hopeful light appeared in her eyes. Your birthday is in a few days. Let me give you your present early. Anything you want, I'll buy it for you. I finally looked up at her, my gaze empty. Then buy me a plane ticket to New York City for 3 days from now. Why New York? She asked, surprised. Then she answered her own question. You want to take a vacation? I didn't explain. I just nodded. Chloe didn't ask any more questions. She just pulled out her phone and bought the ticket right there. I'm going to be busy for a while, so I can't go with you, she said. You go ahead and have fun in New York, and I'll join you when I can. A plane ticket is too small for a birthday present. I'll have a big surprise for you later. I shook my head and smiled faintly. It's not small at all. This ticket is my way home. So thank you, Chloe. Thank you for the gift of sending me home. For the 2 days I was in the hospital, Chloe was as attentive and caring as she'd been when we first started dating. But it didn't last. On the day I was discharged, she suddenly had to go to the office and sent her driver to take me home instead. A moment later, I got a text from Julian. Sorry to hear you're getting out today. Chloe and I are getting married, you see, and she has to have dinner with my family tonight. I'm afraid she's too busy to pick you up. I ignored the message, went home, and started packing. The day of my flight, I was up early. 7 hours before takeoff, I was carrying my last suitcase to the door when Chloe walked in. Seeing the suitcases piled by the door, she looked panicked. What's all this? I thought you were just going to New York for a short trip. You're the one who bought the ticket, remember? I said calmly, as if I were just heading off on a simple vacation. But she wasn't convinced. It's just for a few days, isn't it? Why do you need so many bags? I forced a smile. I wanted to bring a few extra outfits for pictures, but she knew I hated taking pictures, and I never packed this much for our trips. The anxiety spread through her, and she looked like she was about to rip open my bags to see what was inside. But just as she moved, her phone rang. It was Julian. I don't know what he said, but after a moment of silence, Chloe turned to leave. Before she walked out the door, she looked back at me. Ethan, don't be gone too long. Send me your flight details when you're coming back, and I'll pick you up. I didn't answer. I knew I wasn't coming back. This was goodbye. 5 hours before my flight, I changed the security code on the front door from my birthday to Julian's. I left a sticky note on the door. Since this will be Mr. Croft's house soon, it's probably better if the code is his birthday. 3 hours before my flight, I gathered every photo of us in the house and threw them into the fireplace. A picture of me holding her under a sky of fireworks, telling her she was mine. A picture of her at sunset, swearing she would love me forever. A memory of her taking the hit from that truck, breaking 3 ribs for me. Her Facebook feed was filled with pictures of me. We had been through every season together. Now, as the last of those memories turned to ash, so did we. 2 hours before takeoff, my phone buzzed. It was a video from Julian. It looked like a family dinner party with Chloe's friends, Julian's friends, and both sets of parents. A crowd was gathered around Chloe and Julian, cheering and catcalling. He's here. Come on, Chloe, the wedding is just a few days away. What are you so shy for? Amid the cheers, a blushing Julian leaned in, closing his eyes. The crowd went wild. Chloe stared at him for a long moment, then closed her eyes too. The video looped again and again. On the 7th time through, a text from Julian popped up. See that, Ethan? I'm the son-in-law the Davenports approve of. With your poor background, did you really think they'd ever accept you? A guy like you would be lucky to marry a beggar. So what if Chloe loves you? I'm breaking down her defenses, one by one. First meeting the parents, then moving in, and now this kiss. How long do you think until she's completely mine? I didn't reply. I just printed out every taunting message and photo he had sent me over the past few weeks. I stacked the pages neatly on the coffee table in the empty living room. An hour before my flight, I wrote one final sentence on the top page. Chloe, congratulations on your wedding. We're over. Then I dragged my suitcases out of the house, hailed a cab, and headed for the airport. From now on, Chloe, I was Ethan Vance again, and we had nothing to do with each other. JFK Airport, New York. As I walked out of the terminal with my luggage, a priceless-looking Bugatti was waiting at the curb. A man in a suit immediately opened the rear door for me. "Mr. Vance, welcome home." My bags were loaded into the trunk. As I settled into the car, I spoke to the man in the driver's seat. "Mr. Daniels, what are you doing here? Where's the usual driver?" Mr. Daniels chuckled, the smile lines around his eyes crinkling. "You've been away for a long time, sir. When I heard you were coming home today, I insisted on picking you up myself." The car pulled smoothly into traffic. "It seems you missed me, Mr. Daniels," I said with a teasing smile. Soon, the car pulled up to the Vance estate. I got out and walked toward the main house. When I pushed open the massive front doors, a line of household staff was waiting inside. In perfect unison, they bowed and said, "Welcome home, Mr. Vance." I sighed, rubbing my forehead. Mr. Daniels brought my luggage in, and a maid took it upstairs. Seeing my expression, he chuckled. "Your parents insisted on a proper welcome. They had the staff practicing all night. They're waiting for you in the drawing room." I nodded. It was all a bit much, but I didn't want to be a killjoy. I walked into the drawing room, which was filled with people. My parents, my aunts, my uncles, everyone was there. I greeted them all before sitting down between my parents. Seeing the genuine concern on their faces, the composure I'd held onto for so long finally cracked, and a wave of raw emotion washed over me. I'd been doted on my whole life, sheltered from any real hardship. Then I went to Boston, determined to prove myself, and I met Chloe. For 6 years, I gave her my entire heart. I truly believed we would spend the rest of our lives together, that we were meant for each other. And in the end, I almost became her secret lover, and I would have been completely oblivious. All that sincerity wasted. My mother must have seen the sadness in my eyes. She patted my shoulder. "What's done is done, Ethan. The one thing our family isn't afraid of is mistakes. You can always start over. We have more than enough room for error." Her words soothed some of the ache in my chest. Seeing my mood lift, everyone else quickly changed the subject, bringing out their welcome home gifts. I realized then that my mother hadn't been exaggerating on the phone. If anything, she'd been modest. There was a thick stack of property deeds and a long chain heavy with keys to various cars and homes. The centerpiece was a diamond-encrusted watch, each stone massive, the entire piece screaming of wealth and history. But even that wasn't enough. They seemed determined to cover the entire coffee table in front of me with gifts. Just as I was about to tell them it was too much, my aunt clapped her hands, her eyes sparkling. "Ethan, you just went through a breakup, right? Well, my best friend's daughter just moved back to the States, and she's been worried sick that she isn't dating. Why don't you two meet up, just to make a new friend?" I was taken aback and quickly tried to refuse, but my aunt was already pulling out her phone and sending me a contact. "I met her before she went abroad for school. She's a lovely girl, very beautiful. Even if nothing comes of it, it's always good to have another friend." It was impossible to refuse her enthusiasm, so I finally agreed. But when I opened the contact card she sent, I was surprised to see we were already connected on Instagram. I clicked on her profile. There was no name saved, just a profile picture of a crescent moon against a black sky. I stared at it, trying to remember when or why I would have added her, but nothing came to mind. I didn't ask my aunt about it, just locked my phone and put it away. I figured I'd get my answers when we met. While I was half-heartedly preparing for this setup, back in Boston, Chloe was finally arriving home. It was getting dark, and the house was unlit. She didn't see the note on the door and typed in the usual security code. When the door didn't open, she looked up, confused, and finally saw the piece of paper I'd left. "Since this will be Mr. Croft's house soon, it's probably better if the code is his birthday." Mr. Croft's house? Julian's? Chloe's heart hammered in her chest. Did he know? But how could he? He'd only met Julian once, and no one else would have told him. How could he possibly know about the wedding? Hesitantly, she typed in Julian's birthday. The door clicked open. She flipped on the lights. The house was empty. "Ethan," she called out, her voice echoing in the silence. Then she remembered. I had gone to New York. I rarely left for this long. Ever since we moved in together, I was always the one waiting for her to come home. This was the first time I hadn't been there. A sudden, sharp anxiety gripped her, leaving her feeling hollow. Could Ethan actually be serious about this? But she quickly dismissed the thought. Impossible. Ethan loved her too much. He was probably just feeling neglected and had somehow stumbled upon the truth about her and Julian. He would come back to her. He always did. She would just have to smooth things over when he returned. With that thought, she rubbed her temples and walked into the living room. She decided she would call him later, find out when he was coming back, and they would talk everything out. But as she entered the living room, before she could even pull out her phone, her eyes fell on a stack of papers on the coffee table. She walked over quickly, sat on the sofa, and picked them up. A flicker of hope sparked within her. Was it something from Ethan? A gift for her? She knew it. He was just upset. He would never really leave her. A small smile touched her lips, but the smile froze on her face as she read the first page. It was a single sheet of paper with one line of handwriting on it. She recognized my script immediately. It was elegant, almost beautiful to look at, but the words themselves were a sledgehammer to her heart. Chloe, congratulations on your wedding. We're over. A ringing started in her ears, her mind a complete blank. She read the line again and again, but the words didn't change. Asterisk, congratulations on your wedding. We're over. Asterisk, he was leaving her. It had to be a joke. How could he not want her? Her hands moved on their own, ripping the page from the stack, crumpling it into a ball, and throwing it across the room. The action revealed the page underneath. It was a printout of an Instagram chat history, starting from the very first message. I hadn't saved the contact with a name, so all Chloe could see was the profile picture and username. She recognized it instantly. It was Julian. The first message was from Julian, sent 2 weeks ago. She read through the pages, her heart sinking with every word. Heard you're the pretty boy Chloe keeps around. I'm Julian Croft, her fiancé. I suggest you know your place and disappear. Otherwise, it's going to be very embarrassing for you when Chloe and I are married and you get kicked out of her house. All it took was one text, and Chloe came running. We're meeting the parents tomorrow. Once we're married, what does that make you? Her dirty little secret. So what if she loves you? She just kissed me. How long do you think before we're sharing a bed? Interspersed between the messages were photos and even a video. There were photos of them trying on wedding attire, picking out rings, looking at venues. The video was just a single, perfect screenshot, the one frame Julian knew would hurt the most. It was her and Julian, in front of both their families and all their friends, locked in a passionate kiss. Something inside her snapped. A silent, overwhelming panic washed over her. Her face went pale, and she kept whispering, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. She scrambled to her feet and ran for the stairs, but her legs were weak. She missed a step and went tumbling down to the bottom. The sharp pain cleared her head slightly. Gritting her teeth, she pulled herself up using the banister and limped her way back upstairs. Slower this time, she made it to the bedroom without further incident. One look around the room confirmed her fears. Everything of hers was there, but everything of mine was gone. Even the silver frames on our nightstands, which had held our favorite photos, were now empty. A new wave of panic hit her. She threw open the closet doors, pulled out drawers, and found only her own belongings. My side of the closet, my drawers, they were all completely empty. The bedroom, the bathroom, the study, it was all the same. She searched every corner of the house where I might have left something, anything, behind, but there was nothing. She suddenly remembered the spring cleaning a few days ago, when I had thrown out all our matching couple's items. Now, she finally understood why. He was so cruel. He hadn't left her a single memory to hold on to. The anxiety was a physical thing in her chest, but she still couldn't accept it. 6 years. He had loved her so much. How could he just leave her, so coldly, so completely? She refused to believe it. She had to find him, had to get an explanation. The next thing she knew, she was back in the living room, her phone to her ear, listening to it ring on the other end. It rang for a long time before I finally picked up. It was late, and the call had woken me up. I answered without checking the caller ID, my voice thick with sleep. Hello, Ethan, it's me, she said, her voice strained, as if she was afraid I'd hang up. Where are you? I need to see you. And our photos, where are they? The sound of her voice woke me up completely. I looked at my phone screen and saw her name, Chloe. I sighed. I'd forgotten to block her number. While I was silent, she kept repeating my name, her persistence grating on my nerves. Miss Davenport, I said, my voice cold. You're an engaged woman. You should know better than to call your ex. As for the photos, I figured Mr. Croft wouldn't appreciate seeing them when he moves in, so I burned them. And a meeting? I don't see the point. You're getting married. Why would you need to see me? Hearing that I'd burned the photos, Chloe felt a sharp pain in her chest, but my cold rejection hurt even more. Ethan, I never agreed to break up. It's not what you think with Julian. I only love you. How could you just throw me away like this? Her voice broke on the last word, and for a moment, I was silent. I had rarely seen her cry. In 6 years, I'd only seen it once before now, after the car accident. She had been the one who was seriously injured, but when she woke up and saw the cuts and bruises on me, she had sobbed uncontrollably. She was nothing like the ruthless CEO everyone in the business world knew. If one of her partners had seen her then, they wouldn't have believed their eyes. This was the second time. I never doubted that she had loved me, but because I knew what it looked like when she truly loved me, I also knew the moment she agreed to marry Julian that something had changed. Her heart was no longer entirely mine. She might still love me, but she loved other things more. Her family's approval, her social standing. I was the one she was willing to sacrifice. Whether it was her decision to keep me as a secret lover or her instinct to save Julian in the crash, it was clear I was no longer her priority. So now, hearing her cry, hearing her pain, I felt nothing. Chloe, this is a breakup. It doesn't require both parties to agree. And if we're talking about abandonment, weren't you the one who gave up on us first? Don't you dare say I abandoned you. We are broken up. Please don't contact me again. Every word was another twist of the knife. Her lips parted, her eyes filled with grief. Ethan, she began, but I had already hung up. She stared at her phone, stunned. When she tried to call back, it wouldn't go through. I had blocked her. She tried iMessage, Instagram, everything. Every message failed to deliver. She collapsed onto the sofa, her eyes landing back on the stack of printouts. She stared at them, grief and rage warring within her. With a cry of frustration, she swept them off the table. The pages fluttered through the air, landing all over the floor, the sofa, the table. Julian. This was all Julian's fault. If he hadn't shown Ethan those messages, he never would have left her so completely. The last page landed face up at her feet. It was Julian's final, gloating message to me. So what if she loves you? She just kissed me. How long do you think until she's completely mine? She stared at the words, her expression dark. After a long moment, she let out a cold, sharp laugh. A dangerous light flickered in her deadened eyes. Julian, she thought, *, I told you it was always Ethan. Who gave you the right to interfere? Since you're so eager for this wedding, perhaps I should give you a wedding gift you'll never forget. I, of course, knew nothing of this. I just methodically blocked her number and all her social media accounts, then put my phone down and went back to sleep. I slept better than I had in months. The next day was my first day at Apex Corporation. As the new CEO parachuted in from above, I made sure to get an early start. I was confident I could handle the job, but I wasn't going to give anyone ammunition for gossip on my first day. Apex Corporation was the flagship of the Vance family empire, a century-old conglomerate with interests in dozens of industries. Even before my official start, news that a young, handsome new CEO was taking over at Apex had spread like wildfire through the business world. At that very moment, Chloe was drinking with her friends at the most exclusive club in Boston. When they heard that Ethan had found out about the wedding and broken up with her, none of them were concerned. He's just throwing a tantrum because he can't accept being your secret on the side, Jessica said dismissively. I heard he quit his job too. Don't worry. Once he runs out of money, he'll come crawling back. Who else is going to pay for his gambling father and sick mother? Exactly. I've seen a million guys like him. He was just trying to climb the social ladder using you. It's natural he's upset his dream is over. Just give it some time, then sweet-talk him a little. He'll be back, right? With his background, how could he ever be your husband? He was delusional. The life you gave him was something he could have only dreamed of. The chorus of mockery was relentless. Even Chloe, lost in her own drunken misery, found their words grating. Her expression darkened, and with a sudden movement, she hurled her glass against the wall. The sharp crack of shattering glass silenced the room. Have you said enough? She asked, her voice dangerously cold. The others just stared, confused. No one understood her sudden outburst. It sounded like she was defending Ethan, but this wasn't the first time they'd talked about him like this. They'd said worse, right to her face, and she'd never said a word. So what was this about? Finally, Jessica, sitting closest to her, broke the silence. She still didn't seem to take Chloe's anger seriously, assuming she was just in a bad mood. She chuckled, a teasing glint in her eye. What's wrong, Chloe? Still upset? We know you have a soft spot for him, but relax. There's no way he'd give up his meal ticket. I guarantee you, in 2 weeks, he'll come crawling back, and you'll have him right where you want him. The moment the words left her mouth, Chloe looked up at her, her eyes blazing with a cold fury. Apologize. Jessica stared, confused. Apologize to him, Chloe repeated. It finally dawned on Jessica that Chloe was genuinely angry about what they'd said about me. Chloe, why are you getting so worked up? We're not wrong. A poor kid latches onto a billionaire heiress. What do you think he's after? You never had a problem with us saying it before. Jessica's words made Chloe freeze. The anger in her eyes faded, replaced by confusion. Had they really said these things so many times before? And had she really just let them? She racked her brain, trying to find a memory of herself defending me, but she couldn't. Jessica was right. This wasn't the first time. Whenever they spoke in German, whether I was there or not, she had always let it slide. She only ever stopped them when they said things in English, right in front of me. And even then, it was just for show. Her silence, all those other times, was her true answer. The realization left her speechless. She just picked up her glass and started drinking again, one after another. But at the same time, a small, desperate hope began to grow. That's right, she thought. Asterisk his father, his mother, his lack of a job. He has nothing. Asterisk maybe after a while he really would come back to her. Her friends, sensing her mood, wisely changed the subject. Did you guys hear Apex Corporation got a new CEO? One of them asked. I heard it's the Vance heir. He's been off the radar for a few years, apparently trying to make it on his own somewhere. Now that he's back, of course they'd hand him the keys to the kingdom. He's the only son, after all. The entire Vance empire will be his eventually. Even if he's just parachuted in, you know he's been groomed for this his whole life. Funny, isn't it? Two guys with the same last name, but a world of difference between them. Chloe wasn't interested in the conversation and didn't join in, just continued to drink alone in the corner. Because she wasn't listening, she missed the part about the Vance heir being away for years and only just returning home. It never occurred to her that the words I'd written on that note might have been the literal truth. By the time they left, it was late, and Chloe was so drunk she could barely stand. Worried about her getting home alone, Jessica called Julian. By the time he arrived, only Jessica was still there. She practically shoved Chloe into his arms. She's all yours, Julian. Make sure you get her home safe. She gave him a knowing wink, grabbed her keys, and left him alone with a nearly unconscious Chloe. He didn't take her to her house. He took her to his. He managed to get her into his bedroom and onto the bed. After gently wiping her face with a damp cloth, he carefully lay down beside her. Chloe, he whispered, we're getting married soon anyway. This is just starting a little early. As if she'd heard him, the woman beside him snuggled closer. The atmosphere in the room grew thick with possibility. But the name she murmured in her sleep shattered the moment completely. Ethan. She didn't move again, just held onto him tightly, as if afraid he would vanish if she let go. Julian lay there, holding her, a dark, cold look in his eyes. Ethan. It was always Ethan. If only he would just disappear from the face of the earth. The next morning, Chloe woke with a pounding headache. As she reached up to rub her temples, she realized she wasn't alone in the bed. She looked down and saw a familiar head of dark hair. Ethan, she murmured, before her brain fully registered. But the moment his name left her lips, a cold dread washed over her. With a violent shove, she sent the man tumbling out of bed. Julian hit the floor with a loud thud, waking up instantly. He looked up to see Chloe staring down at him, her face a mask of fury. What are you doing here? She demanded, her voice devoid of any warmth. Her tone made him feel instantly wounded. His lip trembled, and his eyes welled up with tears, making him look utterly pathetic. Anyone else might have felt sorry for him. Even the old Chloe, the one from before I left, might have softened. But this was the Chloe who had seen the printouts, the Chloe who knew exactly how he had provoked me and driven me away. Seeing her expression only harden, Julian quickly swallowed his fake tears and explained, you were drunk last night, and since I'm not allowed at your house, I had to bring you here. His words made her realize she wasn't in her own bedroom. Her anger subsided slightly, but the suspicion in her eyes remained. Then why were you in my bed? As she asked, a blush crept up his neck. I was going to sleep in the guest room, he stammered. But you wouldn't let go of me. His coy, suggestive tone made her eyes narrow. It was impossible to tell if she believed him. All Julian saw was her getting out of bed and shooting him one last, icy glare before she walked out of the room. Julian, drop the act, she said from the doorway. We're getting married because you're obedient and a convenient way to appease my parents. That's it. If you ever pull a stunt like this again, I won't hesitate to find a replacement. Julian's face contorted with rage as he watched her leave, grinding his teeth. Meanwhile, back in New York, I stared at yet another unknown number calling my phone. For the first time, I found Chloe utterly, unbearably annoying, like something I couldn't scrape off my shoe. After I blocked her, things had been quiet for a while. But recently, she'd started up again, calling from a new number every time I blocked the last one. I declined the call, blocked the number, and finally the ringing stopped. I let out a breath, silenced my phone, and placed it face down on my desk. Finally, I could focus on the file in front of me. It was for the first major project I'd taken on since joining Apex. If I could land this deal, it would solidify my position with the board. I had jumped at the opportunity, only to find out after the fact that Chloe Davenport had also entered a bid. I wasn't afraid of competing with her. I just didn't understand her motive. The Davenport Corporation was based in Boston. Why was she suddenly making a play for a project in New York? Was it because of me? The thought made me scoff. Did she actually think this was some grand romantic gesture? Planning a wedding with one man while chasing another across the country. The audacity was breathtaking. Even if she didn't love Julian, so what? She was the one who agreed to marry him. And even if I really was just some poor kid from Boston, she had no right to decide on her own that I would go from being her boyfriend to being her secret lover. The bidding for this project was fierce. All the major players were involved, including most of New York's most powerful families. And like Chloe, many had come from out of town for a shot at it. There were so many bidders that the organizers decided to host a pre-bid gala for all the key players. When my aunt dropped off my invitation, she gave me a mysterious wink. I saw her meaningful look and thought I must have missed something. "Aunt Carol, what is it?" I asked. She rolled her eyes, realizing I'd completely forgotten our conversation. "Ethan," she said, patting my shoulder, "don't you remember? I told you I wanted you to meet my friend's daughter. She's been incredibly busy lately, but as it turns out, she'll be at the gala too. It's the perfect opportunity for you two to meet." A blind date. I was momentarily speechless. A blind date at a business gala where we would be professional rivals. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Aunt Carol, will be bidding against each other. You're really setting up two competitors on a blind date." I gave her a sarcastic thumbs up. She was completely unfazed. "So what? You're rivals in business, not in life. Besides, a little friendly reconnaissance never hurt anyone. You could use your charm on her. I've done my research. She's never really dated anyone, but she did have a huge crush on a boy once. And I hear he was just your type." Her words made me pause. I remembered seeing that we were already connected on Instagram, and because I didn't have to send a request, I had completely forgotten about the whole thing. Time had passed and the setup had slipped my mind, but now my aunt's reminder brought it all back. The girl whose crush was my type. The girl I was already connected with online. Had she added me all that time ago because I reminded her of someone else? I frowned. My interest in meeting her waned. It sounded less like she didn't want a boyfriend and more like she couldn't get over her first love. Was I just setting myself up to be a stand-in for some other guy? I didn't mention my suspicions to my aunt. She had no idea. I just forced a smile and took the invitation. I had zero interest in the meeting my aunt was so excited about. I thought my lack of enthusiasm was a clear enough signal, but apparently, my aunt interpreted my silence as agreement. On the night of the gala, a car was waiting for me outside the estate. A woman in a stunning designer suit got out as I approached. "Hello, Mr. Vance." I stopped in front of her. "I don't believe I caught your name," I said coolly. She paused, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes before she masked it. "It's Reed," she said after a moment. "Amelia Reed." Now that I had her name, I didn't protest further. When she gestured to the car again, I got into the passenger seat. We drove in silence. I stared out the window, the name Amelia Reed turning over in my mind. The name didn't ring any bells, but it felt strangely familiar. I glanced over at her, but she was focused on the road. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what. In the end, I remained silent. The car pulled up to the hotel. Amelia and I got out and started walking toward the entrance. After a few steps, I realized she wasn't beside me anymore. I turned to see her standing by the car, looking lost in thought. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She bit her lip, then met my gaze directly. Most men escort their dates inside on their arm. Her expression was neutral, but for some reason, I could see a hint of hurt in her eyes. I cleared my throat, walked back to her, and offered my arm. As we walked toward the ballroom, I couldn't resist asking, "Have we met before?" For a fleeting moment, I saw disappointment in her eyes. He really didn't remember her. Just as I was thinking she wouldn't answer, she took a deep breath. "We were in the same class in high school," she said quietly. "I was the quiet girl who always sat in the back." Back then, Amelia had been withdrawn and shy, the kind of person who was easy to overlook. Her parents were always busy with work, with little time for her. She lived in her own world, and because she rarely responded to her classmates' attempts at conversation, she remained invisible, despite her quiet beauty. Just as she had been invisible to me. She had liked me for a long time, ever since the first time I'd spoken to her. Unlike the other students who would offer a quick, dismissive hello and move on, I had never skipped over her because of her silence. When we had group projects or class discussions, I made a point of asking everyone for their opinion, including her. I became the person who spoke to her more than anyone else, a small point of light in her lonely world. Later, she would curse her own shyness. After graduation, she found my name in the yearbook and sent me a friend request on Instagram, but she never once had the courage to send me a message. She felt that an ordinary girl like her wasn't worthy of me. Later, while she was studying abroad and getting therapy for her social anxiety, she finally worked up the courage to ask a mutual friend about me. That's when she learned I was in a serious relationship. She told herself that as long as I was happy, that was all that mattered, even if she was destined to be just a forgotten classmate. She had almost given up hope, but then she heard I was single again. So she came back. Listening to her story, fragments of memory began to surface, hazy and indistinct, but there. It was hard to reconcile the memory of that quiet, withdrawn girl with the poised, confident woman standing beside me now. "You've changed a lot," I said, impressed. "You're so elegant and composed." My compliment made the tips of her ears turn red. The ballroom was crowded and buzzing with conversation. We had only been inside for a few minutes when another couple made their entrance. I heard the stir and glanced toward the entrance. My eyes met theirs. "Ethan!" The synchronized gasp from both of them turned heads throughout the ballroom. All eyes turned to the entrance. I frowned, now the center of unwanted attention. The Davenports and the Crofts were supposed to be Boston's elite. You'd think they'd have more composure than to cause a scene at a New York gala. Not wanting to be associated with them, I ignored their calls, took Amelia's hand, and started walking deeper into the room. Behind me, Chloe's initial shock at seeing me there turned to fury as she watched me walk away with another woman. In a flash of rage, she forgot all about Julian and hurried after me. "Ethan!" she demanded loudly. "Who is she? What are you doing with her?" By the time Julian caught up, Chloe was already interrogating me. He said nothing, just let his eyes travel from my face to Amelia's, then down to our joined hands, a mocking sneer spreading across his face. "What do you think is going on?" he said with absolute certainty. "He obviously found a new sugar mama after you two broke up. How else would a nobody like him get into an event like this?" He was so focused on his taunt that he missed the dark look on Chloe's face and the confused stares from the people around us. The Vance family was the wealthiest in New York. Did Ethan Vance, the sole heir, really need to ride someone else's coattails to get into a party? Who were these clueless idiots from out of town? If the Vance heir needed an invitation, then who in the room was worthy? But it was shaping up to be an entertaining evening, so no one bothered to correct them. I had just started to frown when Amelia, her expression icy, reached out and clamped her hand around Chloe's wrist. Chloe gasped as Amelia's grip tightened with surprising strength. Chloe, caught off guard, almost cried out in pain, but she still refused to let go of my arm. "Let go," Amelia said, her voice flat and cold. The cold command made Chloe flinch. She looked up at Amelia, her expression turning venomous. Seeing Chloe's distress, Julian stepped in, pointing a finger at Amelia. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to? You'll regret messing with us." Chloe didn't speak, but the vicious look in her eyes and her failure to silence Julian told me she agreed with him completely. I let out a short, sharp laugh and patted Amelia's hand, signaling for her to release Chloe. Amelia was reluctant, but at my nod, she let go. Seeing this, Chloe's expression softened, and Julian smirked, thinking we had backed down out of fear. She adopted a look of wounded love, about to speak, when I unpinned the brooch from my lapel and jabbed it sharply into the back of her hand. She was so certain I would never hurt her, so sure that I still loved her, that she thought I was just bluffing. "Ethan, I know," she began, but the word ended in a sharp gasp as the pin sank into her skin. The sudden pain made her hand go limp, and her grip on my arm loosened. I stepped back, easily dodging the punch Julian threw at me. Then, with a sharp crack, I slapped him hard across the face. A bright red handprint immediately bloomed on his cheek. He stared at me, utterly shocked that I would dare to touch him. "Ethan, you," he sputtered. In contrast to his sputtering rage, my expression was calm, as if I'd just shaken his hand instead of slapping him. I handed a handkerchief to Amelia, then took one for myself, slowly wiping the spot on my wrist where Chloe had grabbed me. I looked at them, my gaze dripping with contempt. "And who, exactly, are you supposed to be?" The smirk on my face made Chloe's eyes burn with fury, but my next words extinguished the fire, leaving only ice. "A couple of fools who come to a high-stakes bid, without even knowing who they're up against. Bidding rivals?" Chloe and Julian mentally reviewed the dossier they'd received on the competition. They looked again at the woman beside me, and the pieces finally clicked into place. Amelia Reed, heiress to the Reed fortune, second only to the Vances in all of New York. The Davenports and the Crofts might be big names in Boston, but in New York, compared to the Vances and the Reeds, they were nothing. It was then that Amelia, who had been silent since her initial command, spoke again. "Instead of asking if I know who you are," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "perhaps you should ask your companion who we are." The word "we" hung in the air, and both Chloe and Julian froze. Did she mean that I was also here to bid? They scanned the list of competitors in their minds. There was only one other major player whose identity was a mystery, the sole heir to the Vance fortune. The realization hit them, and the color drained from both their faces. They looked around and saw the entire room watching them with amusement. In that moment, they knew they were the punchline. Chloe's face flushed with humiliation. Forgetting all about the auction, she turned and fled the ballroom. Julian shot me one last look of pure hatred before scrambling after her. I saw the hatred in his eyes, but I paid it no mind. It wasn't the first time he'd looked at me that way. All Julian had going for him was his family name and the flimsy promise of a marriage to Chloe. Chloe had been willing to marry Julian for strategic purposes even while she claimed to love me. The moment he ceased to be useful to her, she would drop him without a second thought. As for his family, I wouldn't have to do a thing. Once they found out he'd picked a fight with a Vance, they would cut him loose themselves. But right now, my only focus was the auction. Just as the drama subsided, the host took the stage. He glanced briefly toward the exit, where Chloe and Julian were already fleeing, and silently disqualified them in his mind. The bidding was intense, but in the end, Apex won the contract. On the drive home, Amelia was behind the wheel again. This time, she was the one to break the silence. "Do you still love her?" The question was so direct it took me a moment to realize who she meant. I was speechless for a second. "What on earth would make you think that?" "I thought maybe you agreed to meet me because you knew she would be there," she said quietly. "That you were using me to make her jealous." I couldn't blame her for thinking that. I hadn't exactly been friendly when we first met. "My aunt insisted, so I came," I explained. "But I'm not the kind of person who starts something new while still hung up on someone old. Loyalty is the most important thing to me in a relationship, and I hold myself to the same standard." Perhaps the drama at the gala had broken the ice between us, because I found myself answering her questions patiently. We made small talk for the rest of the drive. When we pulled up to my house, I waved goodbye and headed inside. Just as I reached the door, I paused and looked back. Her car was still there, the engine off. I walked back, and she rolled down the window. She looked at me, a question in her eyes. "Mr. Vance? Is something wrong?" "We were classmates," I said with a small smile. "You can call me Ethan." I had noticed her hesitation with my formal name. I should be honest, though. I only agreed to this because of my aunt. I'm not really ready to start a new relationship right now. So, for the time being, I hope we can just be friends. I gave her another wave, a more casual one this time. "Drive safe." As she watched me disappear into the house, a small, genuine smile touched Amelia's lips. "Ethan," she thought, *, "I've waited this long. I can wait a little longer." *, just as he'd said, friends for now. And after all these years, just moving from a forgotten classmate to a friend was more than she could have hoped for. Unlike the two sleepless people back in Boston, I slept soundly that night. That is, until the next morning, when I was woken by an endless stream of notifications from my phone. I groggily opened my eyes to find my social media accounts had completely blown up. The notifications were a constant stream of hateful, vicious comments. In the middle of the chaos, a call came through from a Boston number. It was my friend, Jake. "Ethan, have you seen what they're saying online? It's insane. People will believe anything. They're spreading this crazy rumor that you, the Vance heir, are some kind of homewrecker. You have to set the record straight. Make these trolls pay." Jake was so worked up he was practically shouting into the phone. From his furious explanation, I finally pieced together what had happened. Apparently, after Julian returned to Boston, still smarting from his humiliation at the gala, he had decided to get revenge. He went on Twitter, twisted the entire story, and claimed that I was the one who had broken up his relationship with Chloe. As proof, he posted evidence that Chloe and I had been living together after their supposed engagement. At first, no one believed that the Vance heir would be a homewrecker. But then Julian posted his evidence, and Chloe's friends, including Jessica, all chimed in to corroborate his story. That was all it took. The internet mob, hungry for drama, took the story and ran with it. They found my social media accounts and the floodgates opened. "Your family has all that money and they couldn't teach you any morals? Stay out of other people's relationships. Heir to a fortune and he acts like this? Shameless and disgusting. Boycott Ethan Vance. Boycott Apex Corporation." The comments devolved from there into pure, unadulterated filth. A few sane voices urged people to wait for my side of the story, but they were quickly drowned out by the tide of hate. "I'll handle it, Jake," I said calmly. "Don't forget who I am." The Apex legal department doesn't play around. If he wants to spread lies, he better be prepared for the consequences. My calm tone seemed to reassure Jake. He breathed a sigh of relief, offered a few more words of support, and then hung up. After the call, I went back on Twitter to see how much worse the situation had gotten. I'd be lying if I said the vicious comments didn't make me angry, but mostly I was confused. Before, they looked down on me because they thought I was poor and unworthy of Chloe. Now, the entire internet knew I was the Vance heir. So where did they get the audacity to team up with Julian to sling mud at my name? My expression hardened as I methodically screenshotted the worst of the comments, saving each one. Just as I finished, my phone rang again with another unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Ethan, are you okay? Please don't pay any attention to what they're saying online. I know it's not true, so don't let them get to you. I'm sure your parents are already handling it, but if there's anything at all I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. Hearing the genuine warmth and concern in Amelia's voice, the anger I'd been feeling seemed to dissipate. I let out a small laugh. It's okay, Amelia. I'm not that fragile. It's just a rumor, and I can handle it. Okay. Hearing that I was in good spirits, Amelia seemed to relax. She didn't seem to want to hang up, but she didn't know what else to say either. A comfortable silence stretched between us. The silence was so complete that I could almost hear her soft breathing on the other end of the line. I was the one who finally broke it. Amelia, thank you. The rumors don't bother me, but I appreciate your concern, I added silently. Then I quickly ended the call. On the other end of the line, Amelia held the silent phone, feeling the call had ended far too soon. She wished the moment could have lasted forever. Just being there, on the other end of the line, listening to him breathe in the quiet space between them, would have been enough for her. When my parents first heard about the online attacks, they flew into a rage, ready to fly to Boston and personally confront Chloe, Julian, and that pack of hyenas they called friends. A bastard and that trashy girl, my father roared. They have no idea who they're dealing with, slinging mud at my son. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. They dare to provoke the Vance family. My mother rolled her eyes at my father. Fools, dear? They're animals. Took everything I had to calm them down. Seeing them so worked up, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mom, Dad, it's okay, I assured them. I'm not going to let them get away with this. They wanted to spread lies, and now they're going to pay the price. At that same moment, back in Boston at the Croft residence, Chloe stared at Julian's pathetic, whining face, her own expression filled with pure disgust. Didn't I tell you to drop your pathetic little schemes? I was going to keep you around because you were useful, but you had the nerve to go to Jessica and the others to slander Ethan. I see I've been far too lenient with you. She grabbed his chin, forcing his head up. He shook his head, trying to elicit her pity, but her eyes were cold. Chloe, that bastard Ethan lied to you for 6 years. He's the Vance heir, and he pretended to be some poor nobody. And now we've made an enemy of him. You can't possibly think he still has feelings for you. Instead of waiting for him to destroy us, we should strike first. Together, we can take down the Vance family. At his words, Chloe's grip on his chin finally relaxed. He was right. Ethan was the Vance heir, and he had lied to her for 6 years. If she had known, she never would have needed to agree to an arranged marriage. She had loved him even with his fabricated, pathetic background, willing to keep him no matter what. And what had he done? He'd used her betrayal as an excuse to dump her, humiliating her in the process. Why should she protect his pristine reputation? Why not drag him down into the mud with them? When he had nothing left, he would have no choice but to come back to her. After all, he had already destroyed every memory of their time together. If they all stuck to their story, the homewrecker label would stick to him, not them. Chloe let go of Julian's chin, a flicker of approval in her eyes. Then you'd better work hard, she said. I want you to drag him down from his ivory tower and destroy him. With that, Chloe turned and left. As the sound of her car faded, the look in Julian's eyes grew more venomous. This wasn't just a crime of passion for him. After returning from New York, when his family learned he'd not only lost the bid but also made an enemy of the Vance heir, they had cut him off completely. He had hoped his engagement to Chloe would save him, but the moment he mentioned it, his father had slapped him. You dare mention her name? His father had yelled. She came here the moment she got back and called the whole thing off. You can't even hold onto a woman. Tell me, what good are you? In that moment, Julian realized he had truly lost everything. But why should he be the one to suffer? It was all Ethan's fault. Because of Ethan, his family had disowned him, and Chloe despised him. Why should Ethan get to sit on his throne and look down on him? He channeled all his rage into one final, desperate gamble, pulling Chloe and her friends down with him. They naively believed they could simply erase my 6 years with Chloe, that they could fabricate their own timeline to counter any proof I might have. They thought that until I released 2 pieces of evidence, a surveillance video and the complete Instagram chat history from Julian. The video was from the night at the club a month prior, capturing their entire conversation in German. The audio was a little grainy, but the words were clear enough. It proved Chloe was engaged to another man while still with me, and that she planned to keep me as her secret lover. The second video was from the auction house, showing my confrontation with Julian outside the restroom. In it, you could clearly hear me state that I had been with Chloe for 6 years, and that if anyone was the homewrecker, it was him. His only response was sputtering rage, not denial. If I had truly been the other man, a man with Julian's ego would have screamed it from the rooftops. That, combined with his taunting messages, painted a clear picture. He wasn't the victim. He was the insecure interloper, trying to puff out his chest. His actions screamed of someone who knew he was the third party but was trying to convince himself otherwise with the one who isn't loved is the real intruder mentality. The tide of public opinion turned in an instant. The vitriol that had been directed at me was now turned on Chloe and Julian, tenfold. While the internet mob descended on their Twitter feeds, I filed a lawsuit. I sued Julian, Jessica, and all of Chloe's friends who had participated, as well as the most prominent online trolls who had slandered me. I didn't handle the follow-up myself. I left it entirely in the capable hands of the Apex legal team. When I logged back into my social media, the comments section was finally clean. The few trolls that remained were quickly banned. When their bans were lifted, they would return ready to spew more hate, only to find a summons from my lawyers in their DMs. That usually shut them up for good. In response to the outpouring of supportive comments, I posted a single tweet. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Only the guilty have reason to fear the truth. I will always use the law to defend my rights. As for Julian, he was finished. I didn't follow the case too closely after that. I had full confidence in my legal team to ensure justice was served. I did hear, however, that when Julian's court date arrived, he couldn't find a single lawyer in the city willing to represent him. I almost felt sorry for him. If Julian hadn't been so determined to provoke me, he could have had his quiet, loveless marriage with Chloe, a typical arrangement for people of their class. But he was greedy. When I was with her, he wanted me gone. When I left, he blamed me for all his problems and tried to destroy me. And in the end, this is what he got. The same went for Jessica and Chloe's other friends. They were classic social climbers, convinced that pedigree was everything. When they realized they had made an enemy of me, they threw their lot in with Julian, and now they were facing the consequences right alongside him. It was all so pointless. The one person at the center of it all, Chloe, had managed to escape the public fallout by remaining completely silent. She never posted a single comment, never gave a statement, and so she emerged relatively unscathed. The day the legal proceedings concluded, the head of my legal team came to my office to give me the final report. Due to the severity of the defamation, their complete lack of remorse in court, and my refusal to settle, they were all sentenced to 2 years in prison for libel. The internet had a field day with it. The sight of a group of spoiled socialites being dragged off to prison in tears was, as one commenter put it, a once-in-a-lifetime event. Once I heard the verdict, I put the whole affair out of my mind. So I was surprised, to say the least, when Chloe showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a conversation with Amelia about where to get dinner when my assistant buzzed me on the intercom. "Mr. Vance, a Miss Davenport is here to see you." I froze for a second, then glanced at Amelia, who, in the past month, had systematically dismantled the Davenport Corporation's market share. After a moment's thought, I told my assistant to send her in. I was curious to see what she wanted, now that all pretenses between us were gone. I had imagined she wouldn't be doing well, but I was still shocked when I saw her. It had only been a few months, but I almost didn't recognize her. The woman standing before me was tired and haggard, looking a decade older than the vibrant, beautiful Chloe I had known. The shock lasted only a second before my professional, distant mask slipped back into place. Chloe's eyes flickered to Amelia, clearly surprised to see her there. Her composure wavered for a moment, but she knew she was in no position to make demands. Her expression was one of pure desperation, a silent plea for mercy. "Ethan, I know I was wrong," she began, her voice trembling, "but I never lied about my feelings. I have only ever loved you. For the sake of what we once had, please, call off your attacks on my company." Her posture was completely deferential, a stark contrast to the subtle arrogance she had always carried, even when she tried to hide it. I just spread my hands and shook my head, then gestured to Amelia. "I'm not the one you should be talking to. Why don't you ask her to stop?" I smiled, a cold, empty smile that didn't reach my eyes. Besides, Chloe, whatever we had between us, Didn't you burn through that a long time ago? When you got engaged behind my back and planned to keep me as your secret? When you let your friends mock and belittle me in another language, right to my face? When Julian and your friends were spreading vicious lies about me, and you stood by and did nothing? You come to me now and talk about our past? Where was that sentiment then? My words hit their mark. The color drained from Chloe's face, and she looked as if it was physically painful for her to swallow. Ethan, I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. But if this continues, my company won't survive. I just shrugged. And what does that have to do with me? Chloe, they all paid the price for what they did. Why do you think you can get away with a simple apology? But I never did any of those things, she said desperately, trying to defend herself. At her words, the last trace of my forced smile vanished. You didn't do them, no? I said, my voice laced with contempt. You just stood by and watched. And that, Chloe, makes you the worst of them all. I didn't bother to hide the disgust I felt as I looked at her. It was your silence that gave your friends permission to attack me. It was your complicity that gave Julian the power to hurt me. And now you say you did nothing? Fine, you did nothing, and I'm doing nothing to your company. I can't help you. I raised my voice slightly. Mina, please show our guest out. My assistant immediately opened the door, a polite but firm smile on her face. This way, Miss Davenport. She opened her mouth to protest, but I took Amelia's hand and walked right past her out of the office. I was the CEO. I could leave early if I wanted to. I knew Mina would make sure Chloe left without any further incident. So, where are we going for dinner? I asked Amelia. Italian? Or something more casual? I could really go for some comfort food, actually, she replied. Comfort food it is. Whatever you want. Amelia's smile was open and relaxed, so different from the shy, reserved woman I'd first met. I turned back to her, raising an eyebrow. You're always so agreeable. Amelia stopped walking. She looked at me with an intensity that made my heart skip a beat. I was about to brush it off and keep walking, but her voice stopped me. Ethan, she said, her voice clear and steady. It's because I like you. Her confession was sudden, but not entirely unexpected. I stopped and turned to face her, sighing. Amelia, but I know you said you're not ready for a new relationship, she interrupted gently. So, when you are ready, can I be the first one you consider? Her eyes were shining, and looking at the hope sparkling there, I found I couldn't turn her down. I smiled a little. Since you put it so sincerely, I'll agree to that. Amelia beamed, and as if ignoring the slight hesitation in my voice, she stepped forward and wrapped me in a warm hug. Amelia had waited through many lonely seasons. She believed that now, finally, that loneliness was coming to an end. In that warm embrace, we both understood that some things are worth waiting for, and some loves are just the beginning of a much brighter future.